This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222.
Prof, what's the total estimated cost of one IVF cycle at your clinic?
If you're covered by Medicare, the out-of-pocket is going to be around about $6,000 to $7,000. If you've got medical private insurance, that'll drop back to $5,500 because that will cover your hospital, the day hospital fee. That figure of the premium units around Sydney is probably amongst the lowest.
Prof, you've been in this field for 35 years, as you said. What breakthrough has personally amazed you the most?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about IVF, when I started, if we got a pregnancy rate of 10% per cycle, we thought we were doing well. That's 1986. We're now talking about 40%. We're 4 times better than we were then. Has there been any dramatic change? Well, no, not really, is the answer to that. We've just looked at our data from comparing 2019 in Australia with 2023, and in that 5-year time frame, pregnancy rates have gone up by 10%. Now, what's 10%? 10% means it goes from 28% to 30%, which doesn't sound very much, but it's a 10%, and that's been going on and on and on for the last 25 years. I suppose the game changer from my perspective was what we could do for male fertility. In my first 15 years of IVF, if you had dove sperm, you used donor sperm. In the early 1990s, the technique of sperm injection was developed, and that meant that men with minimal sperm could have genetically their children rather than using donor sperm. And I think that's probably the biggest breakthrough for an area of the fertility. The rest has been gradual improvement in incubators, gradual improvement in culture medium. I don't think there's been any improvement in doctors. I think the techniques of putting an embryo back haven't changed in 30 years. And I suppose the medications is the other side that has changed, which makes the whole process more patient-friendly. Less injections, nicer injections, less blood tests, less ultrasound. So the patient experience has changed. But in terms of pregnancy rates, it's just been a gradual improvement.
Prof, can AI personalize the timing between trigger injection and egg retrieval for better outcomes?
Yeah. So AI is the topic of the moment. Everybody's talking about it. Does it make any difference? It may make a difference in time, but from the data so far, it's making no difference to pregnancy rates.
Okay.
I mean, our study undertaken with Vitrolife, one of the companies, showed that if you had 4 or 5 embryos, or I think it was 3, at least 3 embryos, you asked an embryologist to pick the best embryo, and you asked AI to pick it. AI could do it in less than a minute, or less than a second, really, and the scientists took 5 minutes. But the pregnancy rate at the end of the day was identical. It's not that the scientists are any worse or any better. AI really didn't make a difference other than the time to make those decisions. So, it might make a difference in the medium term in terms of the number of scientists we need and therefore the cost of a cycle, maybe, but it's pretty marginal. AI is being used in a whole range of other areas of infertility or IVF labs. Again, so far I've seen no data that says that we're making massive steps forward in terms of getting to a pregnancy. And the bottom line is if you produce 3 good embryos, then all you're doing is picking the best one of those 3. You're not going to throw the other 2 out. It just means that if you pick the best one first, by whatever means, a very good embryologist or an AI system will put that one back and you'll be pregnant this month rather than waiting for for it to be the third embryo that gets put back. Ultimately, the cumulative pregnancy rates are no different.
Prof, that brings up an interesting question. Maybe this is the last one for tonight. Say an embryo is stored for a long period of time. The question is, if an embryo, let's say, is stored for 20 years, 30 years, can it lead to a healthy live birth, and what are the long-term outcomes? And interestingly, what ethical challenges come up in that situation?
Well, number one is that once an embryo is on ice, it's on ice. And embryos frozen 20 years ago are probably not the same quality as the embryo frozen today. But that's not about the embryo, it's about the technique that was used at the time. So the odds of pregnancy are less if you're that far ago. I think the record that I know of is 17 years in the same woman, a frozen embryo producing a baby at that. The issue, and it is going to be an ethical issue going forward, is that because we're freezing so many embryos so well, in addition to having improved pregnancy rates, that more and more couples or women are going to end up with spare embryos sitting in a freezer, for which they're paying, $500 to $700 a year in storage, potentially forever. Do they want to keep paying that money? And if they don't want to keep paying that money, what are they going to do with the embryos? Each of those embryos has a 30 to 40% chance of producing a baby, but 70% would never produce a baby anyway. The options that people have are to donate them for research. Very small number, and very few research projects are looking at embryos because we're not allowed to grow them on to anything beyond where they are. We're basically using them as dead embryos. The next is to actually donate them to another couple, but for most people, they see that as adoption. I'm giving away a baby to somebody else. Albeit, what they're doing is making a couple incredibly happy, and they're creating a pregnancy or baby that's from day one. They're not being a cast off in the sense of most in the past. Adopted babies tended to be babies that mothers didn't want, whereas opposed, these are not. They're slightly different psychologically, but less than 2% of all embryos that we have in storage are given to donation.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.